Hello and welcome back to the Second Take Podcast. My name is Calvin Williams. I'm here with my co-host Marco Rogers, and today it is Season 4, Episode 1 of this new year. I'm hyped. This is going to be our first week of college football. Super big week. Let's waste zero time and get straight back into where we left off. I'm crazy hyped for this new season. I think we're going to grow a ton, and it's just going to be a great year overall. So, Marco, do you want to kick us off with how we think this Michigan season is going to go? Give me an offensive breakout player that you're feeling for this Michigan season.
So my offensive breakout player for the Michigan Wolverines this season is going to be Darius Clemens, the wide receiver. He's 6'3", only appeared in 2 games last year. He appeared in Colorado State and UConn, both blowouts at the end. But Ronnie Bell leaving, there's a big hole to fill. I mean, he was clearly our best receiver last year, and there's going to be a big hole to fill at wide receiver 2. And despite Roman Wilson and Cornelius Johnson returning, that'll be Cornelius Johnson at wide receiver 1 and Roman Wilson at the slot. We expected Angelo Anthony to be the wide receiver 2 this year, but he also leaves. He transferred to Oklahoma. So now the wide receiver 2 position is pretty much a competition between Tyler Morris and Darius Clemens. And I think that Darius Clemens wins that battle. That's what most people are saying after the camps. And I think that he will be a very solid receiver. I don't think he will get over 800 yards this year, but I think he'll be a solid option for J.J. McCarthy and definitely going to have a big year. And I think junior year, he'll be our best receiver.
Yeah, I mean, last year, I remember that crazy catch he made in the spring game. Super exciting guy. I hope he has a really great season. And he has a perfect build for a wide receiver. I mean, 6'3" is one of the more adequate heights you can get. My breakout player is for the Michigan offense is going to be Miles Hinton, the right tackle. A transfer from Stanford. This dude is just an absolute unit. 6'6", 340 pounds. I think he's going to be setting edges for the talented Michigan backfield, Blake Corum and the Don. And I think he'll just be great in the pass protection game. Should be a great tool for J.J. McCarthy.
Miles Hinton out of Stanford, that guy's a beast. He'll definitely have a big season, and hopefully Michigan can win the Joe Moore Award again. For defense, my breakout player is going to be Amorion Walker, the corner. He converted from wide receiver last year. He was a freshman last year, so he'll be a sophomore. We heard great things from him in spring camps and fall camps, but in that spring game, which is the only time everyone has been able to see him play corner, he got absolutely torched by Michigan's wide receiver 6, Peyton O'Leary. I believe he went for over 100 yards. Just Amorion Walker looked like he didn't even belong at the position. And changing from offense to defense is not that easy. I mean, guys like Mikey Sanders still made it look very easy, but it truly is very difficult. So I expect him to come out as a second stringer with Josh Wallace, the UMass transfer, starting at cornerback 2. But I think by mid-season, I think he'll develop well. He'll be able to play in some games, and I think that he'll be out Josh Wallace and be our cornerback 2 and be very solid at that position.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it is tough to switch from offense to defense, but this guy is an athletic freak. Do you think that he'll be able to adjust to reacting to receivers? I mean, it's a completely different game on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, clearly he wasn't very good at it in the spring game, getting absolutely torched by a not very good receiver. But I think once he sees more receivers, obviously our first 5 games or so we play pretty terrible opponents, he'll get in a lot. And I think by the end of the season, he'll be good enough to at least play defense against some of the better receivers like Ohio State and Penn State have.
Yeah, I do like that reasoning. Just kind of easing him into it. He'll get a lot of reps, hopefully, just because we're blowing these teams out, and should develop as a cornerback. Yeah, I like that. For my defensive breakout player for Michigan, I'm going to be taking Braden McGregor, the edge rusher. I mean, he got very few snaps at the start of last season. Excuse me. because he was behind really good players like Mike Morris, like NFL guys. But by the end of the season, he worked his way up to having a huge role, made multiple big plays in the Ohio State game. And I just think he's going to have an enormous impact this year. I think he's going to be top 3 edge rushers in the Big Ten, and I don't think that's crazy. Marco?
Yeah, I think he'll definitely have a solid year. I mean, Michigan definitely has a big hole to fill at that edge rusher position, and he looked very solid towards the end of the year last year. So I definitely think he can make an impact. Now we're gonna go to college football breakout players. So college football as a whole. My breakout player is gonna be Keon Coleman for Florida State. Last year at Michigan State, he had 58 receptions, around just under 800 yards, 7 touchdowns, including 5 receptions for 155 yards and a touchdown versus Michigan. Anytime they threw a jump ball in that Michigan game, he would come down with it. And he was at MSU with a very bad quarterback, I would say, in Peyton Thorne. He was being guarded by the cornerback 1 by pretty much every team he played. But this year he will be the wide receiver 2 for Florida State. And you could argue he's the 4th most dangerous option on this offense when they got guys like Johnny Wilson, Jaheim Bell, and Trey Benson. But as Michigan fans know, he's one of the most talented receivers in college football. And with the Heisman candidate at QB throwing to him and Jordan Travis, a guy who can just make plays when they seem over, I think that he will have a huge season. And I think he can emerge as one of the best receivers in the NFL in college football. And him and Johnny Wilson will be a very scary duo for teams in college football this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's an athletic freak. No other way to say it. He was mossing our receivers left and right in the Michigan MSU game last year. So definitely an exciting season for him coming up. My breakout player for all of college football is going to be Kalen King. Out of Penn State, the defensive back. So last year, he was a cornerback 2 behind Joey Porter Jr., one of the best corners in college football, high-level NFL talent. So he didn't get that much of the shine, but this year he's going to get a lot of opportunities to go against really good Big Ten receivers. You've got guys like Marvin Harrison at Ohio State that are like the best of the best, cream of the crop. And he's going to really get tested, and I really think he's going to show out. He's a super talented guy, and if he's able to lock up guys like Marvin Harrison, he's easy first-round talent.
Yeah, Kalen King, going to be one of the best corners in the Big Ten, and definitely going to be tough for teams to put up a lot of points on Penn State passing the ball when he is at corner. I'm very excited to see him play against Marvin Harrison later this year. Next up, we're going to do New Year's Six / college football playoff dark horses, teams that not a lot of people are hyping up, not expected to do very well this year, but we believe that they might be able to make a run, possibly at the college football playoff, but more likely in New Year's Six game. My pick is going to be Louisville. I do not think that this is going to be a playoff team. They just aren't that good. But they acquired Jeff Brom, Purdue's old coach. He was very, very successful at Purdue, took some not-so-talented teams into the Big Ten championship, beating teams like Ohio State several times in his career at Purdue. They only have one preseason ranked team on their schedule, that being number 13 Notre Dame, coming to Louisville. And Jeff Brom, very, very good at home against good teams, as we have seen many times in his coaching career. They have former Purdue quarterback and California transferred Jack Plummer at quarterback, coming off probably the best year of his career, passing for over 3,000 yards, 21-9 touchdown interception ratio. And I think he'll be probably a top 5 QB in the ACC. Obviously not going to be on the level as guys like Jordan Travis, but definitely going to be one of the better players on this team. And they got lots of very, very good defenders like Ashton Gillotte. He had around, I believe, 10 sacks last year. Jarvis Brownlee, a very talented corner. I think they'll be a solid defense. And any good team with an easy schedule is always a New Year's Six contender. And I think with this schedule, easily they could go 9-3, only one ranked team. And I think possibly 11-1, maybe even 12-0 in the regular season if they can upset Notre Dame. And I think that this is possibly an ACC championship contender. And I think that they'll make a push at the New Year's Six and definitely finish as a ranked team.
Yeah, Louisville's a super interesting team. I mean, they were absolutely atrocious last year. But great job by management, making a bunch of changes. It's very hard to do that, admit that you're not doing well, and just complete reset. I think that's really good for Louisville. And yeah, who knows, maybe they could make a push. My dark horse is going to be the North Carolina Tar Heels for the New Year's Six. I don't, like you said with Louisville, I don't think they're quite at the level of a playoff team, but definitely very solid. This isn't quite as much of a reach as Louisville. I mean, I think Louisville's a great pick, but that's definitely more risky than North Carolina, just because North Carolina was solid last season. They're one of the most high-powered offenses. They were one of the most high-powered offenses in college football last year behind Drake May, and Drake May is returning as a senior, and he's poised to be a Heisman candidate. I mean, this guy's absolutely phenomenal, super talented, and their only preseason ranked game right now is Clemson, which I don't think they'll get that one done, but an 11-1 season is definitely a New Year's Six game coming out of the ACC, and yeah, I think they're definitely a possible New Year's Six team. Marco?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that Drake May is a top 5 quarterback in college football at the least, probably top 3. But, I mean, he's losing Josh Downs, his best receiver from last year. Pretty much half their defense went to the transfer portal. That defense was probably the worst defense in arguably all of Power 5, maybe all of college football. They are horrendous.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, just because their defense went into the transfer portal doesn't mean they're going to be worse, because they suck.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get worse for that defense. I mean, they're allowing over 50 points to teams like Appalachian State, who they just should not be doing that to. And I just don't think that the defense is going to be good enough for this to be a New Year's Six team. But I do believe that Drake May will have a good year. Next up, we're going to do our Heisman predictions, just who we think will win the Heisman Trophy and all the candidates. For me, I have Caleb Williams at number 1. He's the best player in college football. One of the better players we've seen in our lifetimes. Obviously, he hasn't done much winning in terms of playoffs and bowl games, but he is just so talented. USC always has great receivers. They got Zakarian Branch coming in. Yeah, he's just the best quarterback in college football and the best player. Michael Penix at 2. I mean, he was a beast last year, throwing for 4,641 yards, 31 touchdowns, 8 picks. I mean, he was just launching missiles to Rome Odunze. And Rome Odunze is a top 3 wide receiver in college football. He will continue to be that next year. And playing against some pretty weak defenses, I would say. I mean, I would say USC is a bad defense. Oregon State does not have the best defense. Neither does Oregon. I mean, I definitely think that this is a team that could go very far this year, as I'll say later. And I think he'll be just a beast for them. At 3, I have Jordan Travis. As I said earlier, they have Keon Coleman. They also have Johnny Wilson, one of the better receivers and one of the best receivers in college football. They have Jaheim Bell, probably the best receiving tight end in college football. He's so athletic, and he has a very big frame. And Jordan Travis made some plays that just not a lot of people can make. I don't even think Caleb Williams can make some of the plays that Travis was making last year, which is why I have him at 3. I think he'll just go crazy this year. At 4, I have Marvin Harrison Jr. No need to explain. He's the best receiver in college football, one of the best receiving prospects we've ever seen, and he'll just dominate every single team he plays. And I have Drake May just missing my finalists just because I don't think North Carolina is going to be very good, unlike all of these teams. And I just don't think that if you're not a top 20 team, I don't think you can be a Heisman candidate, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, solid list. Mine's gonna be a little different, as you'll see. Let's go 4-1 instead of 1-4. So at number 4, I do have Drake May, just barely making my list. Simply because based on talent alone, he should be at number 2, but with the players around him, I think that he just won't be able to make that push to go to the 2 or 1 slot. And then at number 3, I have Marvin Harrison. This guy is so talented. One of the best receivers I've seen in college football in a really long time. I mean, you see guys like Devontae Smith who absolutely just tear up everyone, but Marvin Harrison is doing this against some crazy good Big Ten defenses, and he's going to put on a show this year, I can assure you that. At number 2, I have Blake Corum. I mean, he was amazing last year. He got hurt a little towards the end, which is why some people are reluctant to put him this high. But he's saying that he's feeling 100%, and I believe him. I don't think Blake Corum is going to miss a beat. I think he's going to be amazing this year, and I don't think our O-line is going to take any steps back either. And then finally at number 1 for my Heisman Trophy predictions, I have Caleb Williams. Like Marco said, just was the best player in college football last year, and I don't see anyone else being able to catch up this year. Obviously, things happen, but this guy's really good. Marco?
Yeah, I feel like the only reason why I didn't have Blake Corum in mind was because of Donovan Edwards and the fact that, I mean, I think he's also probably a top 5 at least, probably top 3 running back in college football. And it's just tough to get enough carries and enough yards when you're splitting with another guy who's that talented. So I think Corum is the best running back in college football and is talented enough to make my list. I just don't think he'll get enough touches. He'll get a lot of touches, but just not as much as you'd expect a guy of his talent. Next,
Yeah, but I mean, if you see, like, I don't know if you've heard of this, but like back in, I don't know how long, like you had Reggie Bush and I forgot the other guy's name, but they were like thunder and lightning, right? Reggie Bush won the Heisman, but that other guy was still getting a ton of carries, and that's sort of going to be what Donovan Edwards is to Blake Corum. Like, Blake Corum's going to be up there to win the Heisman, but Donovan Edwards is going to get us those big carries when he needs it. He's going to use his speed to create big plays, and every team needs an RB2. And I just think Michigan's going to be running the ball a lot and utilizing both guys, but at the end of the day, Blake Corum's talent is going to show up.
Yeah, I mean, he'll have a lot of yards. I just don't think that he'll have quite enough to win the Heisman. By the way, the other guy's name was Lindell White for USC. Next up, college football playoff predictions. Who we think will be in the playoffs next year, or this year, actually technically next year. For me, number 1, Georgia. They play absolutely no one until, I believe, week 12, where they play at number 12, Tennessee. Tennessee has Joe Milton at quarterback, who's terrible. And Georgia will destroy him, and they'll probably destroy Tennessee. They don't play anyone until the SEC championship. They'll play probably LSU or Bama. That'll be their toughest test. They'll probably win it because Georgia does not seem to lose much. And yeah, they'll just easily cruise to 13-0 in my opinion. At least 12-0. Maybe they'll lose the SEC championship, but then they'll still be in the playoffs. I think they're 95% chance that Georgia makes the playoffs this year, which sounds crazy, but I think it's probably true. And number 2, I have Michigan. We play at Penn State week 11. Then at Maryland week 12, people probably look at that game, think, okay, that's an easy game between Ohio State and Penn State. I think Maryland's a very underrated team this year. Talia Tagovailoa, one of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten. I would say he's a top 3. I would say he's probably the 3rd or 4th best quarterback in the Big Ten. And Maryland always has a solid roster. They gave Michigan some fits last year. And at Maryland in a trap game, I think that could be tough. Then versus number 3, Ohio State, week 13. Obviously, it's Michigan, Ohio State. I think we'll win that. I'm not sure who's going to be quarterback for Ohio State, Devin Brown or Kyle McCord. Hopefully it's Kyle McCord because he cannot run. But I just still feel like Michigan will win that game no matter who's playing quarterback. And hopefully it's snowing, so Marvin Harrison will not go crazy. At third, I have Florida State. I've talked about Jordan Travis. I've talked about Keon Coleman. They have Trey Benson at running back. I've talked about Jaheim Bell. Johnny Wilson's a beast. This offense, I think, is just so talented. They also have a lot of good defenders. This team is so talented. Lots of 5 stars. They recruit well, and those recruits have panned out, at least for these recent classes, which is why I think Florida State will make the playoffs. They play week 1 versus number 8 LSU in a neutral site. That'll be tough. Then week 4, they play at number 9 Clemson. I think they'll win one of those games, and then they'll win out because they don't play anyone else until the ACC championship, which they won't be playing that good of a team. I think maybe they'll play Clemson again. I think they'll beat Clemson, even if they beat them the first time. At 4, I have Washington. They have a pretty tough schedule down the stretch. They have to play at home against number 15 Oregon and number 14 Utah, at number 6 USC, and at number 18 Oregon State. I think they win 3 of 4 there. I think they could drop any one of those games, but I do think they'll win the others. And then the Pac-12 championship, obviously going to be tough against one of these teams, probably USC. But I think they probably lose the first one against USC, then get them back in the Pac-12 championship. So that is why I have Washington at 4.
Yeah, I think that's a solid list. I switch it up a little bit. Obviously, Georgia at number 1, no surprise. They're playing absolutely no one because they don't have Alabama on their roster. I mean, they have number 12 Tennessee, like you said, but nothing really to talk about there. At number 2, I have Michigan. Also, I mean, obviously I'm going to be a little biased, but we've proven the past 2 years what we can do, and it just seems like every year we're getting better and better. We're returning 2 of the best running backs in the country, and it's just going to be hard to stop a run game in any way, shape, or form. At number 3, I actually have USC. I do think Caleb Williams is going to carry this team on their back. I mean, they're so talented on offense, some of the best wide receivers in the country, and then you have the best quarterback in the country by a mile in Caleb Williams as of now. So that, for me, is enough. The big battle is just going to be what their defense can do, but I think if their defense shows up enough, they'll be able to make a solid run for the playoffs. And then finally, I have Clemson. And although they do have a tough schedule, Florida State, Marco's pick for the playoffs, Notre Dame, and UNC, I think they take care of all of those teams. Say maybe they lose to Notre Dame or something, I still think they have a good chance at making that number 4 spot and sneaking their way into the college football playoffs. And usually I'm not a big Clemson believer, but something about this year, I think that they'll make a solid run. Marco?
Yeah, Clemson obviously hosting all 3 of those teams in Florida State, Notre Dame, and North Carolina. Very tough environment, tough to beat Clemson at Clemson in Death Valley. So that is also a reason why they will have a pretty successful year. Obviously, they got Will Shipley, Cade Klubnik. I think it comes down to Klubnik. I don't think he'll be that good, but if he's as good as what 247 said last year as a recruit, then I think Clemson is very easily going to be the number 4 team. I just don't think he's quite on that level, but definitely a solid list, and I'm just excited to see who will make the playoffs. To finish it, we will do week 0 predictions. This Saturday is going to be the first Saturday of college football. Not many good games, but some ranked teams are playing. So, Cal, why don't you start off with Navy at Notre Dame?
Yeah, I mean, Navy is a military school. Those schools love to run the ball, and it'll truly be actually a good way for Notre Dame to be tested at the start of the season. Just kind of see what their run defense is looking like. I think Notre Dame will handle business here. They have one of their most promising seasons looking ahead of them in a while. So I think they take care of this one, get through a few of their easy games, and then week 5 they play Ohio State. So they've got to definitely turn up before then. Week 3 they have NC State, which is not an easy game since it's away. But as for this game, I think Notre Dame takes care of business. 35-18.
Yeah, obviously they have Sam Hartman, one of the best quarterbacks in college football. I don't think he'll be as good for Notre Dame as he was for Wake Forest, because they just ran the triple option every play. But he's definitely a beast, and Notre Dame will be better this year than last year. However, they definitely struggled with that triple option of Navy, allowing 32 points. They won that game 35-32. I think Notre Dame's offense is better this year. Their defense, they always have a good defense, but for some reason, defense did not show up to that game. Maybe Navy can give them some fits again. I would say 42-21 Notre Dame. I think the offense shows out, but the defense does struggle a little early.
Okay. And then our final week 0 prediction game, San Jose State at number 6 USC. Marco, who you got?
I have USC 63-28. I do not think that there will be a drive where Caleb Williams did not make USC score a touchdown, but I don't think that this defense can tackle a football player, so I think San Jose State will have some success on offense. I don't know a single player on their team, but I assume they have a quarterback that can throw the ball, so they will be able to put up points on USC. But, I mean, USC will put up points on anyone, especially teams like San Jose State.
Yeah, I mean, this San Jose State team definitely had a decent defense last year, only allowing 20.3 points per game. But that being said, they are in the Mountain West, so not as high-powered as an offense that you'll see in USC. I think USC drops minimum 65 points and win this game 65-21. I think San Jose State gets a few touchdowns in there, but at the end of the day, it's just not even going to be close to enough.
Yeah, obviously some other games this week. Hawaii versus Vanderbilt. That's kind of an example of all the games going on besides those two. So we're just not going to predict them because the teams aren't that good. But definitely going to be exciting. I'll be watching all those games despite all those teams being pretty bad. And I'm just excited for college football to be back.
Yeah, me too. And then just one more thing before we say goodbye for Season 4, Episode 1. This one's about Michigan football. I think if J.J. McCarthy is throwing the ball deep, using the cannon, showing off the gun, Michigan football is going to get it done. Thank you all for listening to this episode of the Second Take Podcast. We will see you next week. Peace.
Bye.